I think we have a natural tendency to view effort as something to be avoided, and today I wanted to make the case for why that is not always the best mindset. If you're new here, my name is Jarle, and on Early Owl we learn how to do the work. I talked about this in a previous video, and I got a few questions and comments around what that meant, and this is also a topic I wanted to make a separate video about, so here it is. Just to talk about how we think effort is a bad thing. I feel like this has to come from some biological reasoning back in the day where we were trying to conserve energy and that trained us to avoid expending energy. But that's not the case now. If you are watching this video, you're probably not going to starve if you work too hard in some specific area. Another reason why I want to make this video is that I think it's kind of the default position you end up with if you don't think too hard about it. You see this mindset of effort being negative in a lot of different areas. One area is when it comes to kind of learning things or acquiring skills and then being too results oriented. YouTube is one example of this. I think I've seen happen several times is people mention that they want to get into YouTube and they want to learn it and create the channel, but they're worried that if their channel doesn't grow to some specific number or doesn't go big or whatever, that the effort is wasted. But I don't think the effort is ever wasted if you're trying to learn something new and you're kind of growing in specific ways. Even if you don't reach some magical end goal, that doesn't mean you didn't grow or you didn't get benefit from it. When it comes to studying and tests and things like that, you don't only have the obvious thing of getting the same result but putting in less effort, so you're kind of getting more for your effort, but you also have the trap of falling into the idea that if you get the same result with less effort, it means you're smarter. So it becomes like this self-validation if you're able to get a good grade on an exam or pass on an exam by putting in almost no effort. At work, I kind of feel like how the workday is normally structured has done a lot of this damage to ourselves, because you will generally have a set time when you're expected to be there and when it's okay to leave. And as long as you stay within those parameters, it's not that important how much effort you're putting in. But normally, if you were to try to go outside of those parameters, like if you started showing up late or leaving earlier, then it would be very hard in most workplaces to just make up for that with extra effort. So I think this, when it comes to the workplace, just kind of ingrains to us the idea that, oh, it's not about how much effort you put in, but it's just about putting in some time and just being there. I think it's also easy to fall into the mindset of just doing what is expected of you and not really going outside of that. This also impacts how you decide on your goals or decide on what to do, where you kind of think setting a goal that is easy to achieve is a good thing, and then a goal that is hard to achieve or where you have a high chance of failure is a bad thing. So all of these things can lead you to do whatever is the minimum, or just doing what you think is required, or kind of taking the easy way out. And why is that a bad thing? A big one is that kind of grit, or the ability to put in effort or be consistent with something, is a universal trait in some sense. So when you're studying, you're not just learning the thing you are studying, you are learning how to build habits around putting in effort towards a specific goal and reaching that. And if you just lean into the minimal amount of effort and taking the easy way out every time, then you're going to weaken those muscles in a sense, like you will be predispositioned to just taking the easy way out or figuring out how you can put in the least amount of effort. But if you go in the opposite direction and you kind of try to put in more effort, then you're going to be building that muscle. So even if you don't care that much about whatever you're studying right now, or you don't feel like learning the subject material is going to be really helpful for you, if you have something in the future, like you want to start a company or you have some passion that you want to follow, but you know it's going to be difficult, then building up those muscles while you're studying can help you achieve those goals later. If you focus on the effort you put in instead of results, this leads you to be able to do things better. I think it's very easy for the relationship between efforts and being results oriented to become a vicious cycle. As mentioned, you can use putting in low effort as kind of validation for how smart or good you are. Like, oh, I just studied 5 hours for this test and I got an A, I must be so smart. But this can also work in the opposite direction when you want to try something difficult and you're either worried you're going to fail or you want to protect your ego or something like that. Then you can avoid putting in effort. And then if you fail, you can just tell yourself, oh, I failed, but I didn't really try. So I'm sure I could have done it if I tried harder. And obviously, just putting in less effort is going to increase the chance you fail at anything. So instead of first taking the results and then kind of measuring them with how much effort you put in, you should just ignore the results and focus on what you can control, which is the effort you put in, and then eventually the results will come. Another reason I think effort is good, and I think this is universal, it is at least very true for me, is that effort makes things more enjoyable. I've noticed this in all the jobs I've had, but I think the clearest example is when I was working in this kind of random store that sells different gadgets. What I noticed is on the days where I was kind of low on motivation and I didn't feel like working, and also on the kind of slower days where there wasn't much happening, the time would go by really slow and I would get really bored, and it would just be not torturous, but it would just be like a really long, boring day at work. I was just looking at the clock every 15 minutes, just waiting for until I could go home. But on the busier days, or the days where I kind of took it on myself to do something proactive, like reorganize the shelves, or I was just motivated to do something, or say in the really busy periods like Christmas, then I noticed I got like a completely different energy, and time was just going much faster, and I felt much better when I got off work. This touches on another point I want to make, which is that putting in effort doesn't have to be hard. I think it's very easy to fall into this trap, because if you're not used to doing it, then the idea of doing it seems very hard. Like, that's why on the days where I'm not feeling motivated at work, a simple task comes up and I have to do it, and that suddenly seems really difficult. But on a day where I am already motivated and I am already putting in effort, the same task, which felt hard, is going to be much easier to do. Another positive thing about effort is that I think it can give you fulfillment. This is something I've heard Cal Newport talk about, where he kind of pushes against the idea that you should just follow your passion. And what he says instead is that you can build a passion, or you can build fulfillment around kind of honing a craft or finding something and becoming good at it. And I do think there is a lot of truth to that. It's impossible for everyone to land up with some dream job that is just exactly what they wanted to do as a hobby and they get paid for it. But I think most people can find a job they're happy enough with and then build competence and build passion around that. I normally don't like adding caveats to my points, but I think this video is worth it because a lot of the questions I got was around stuff like this. And also because I think there's a lot of different ways to kind of misapply this idea. So I'll just go through a couple of things of what I don't mean by this. First of all, I'm not saying that you should be inefficient. If you can do something and be more efficient, that's good. But to take studying as an example, it's great if you finish your homework in half the time. But what you can do instead is explore the topic further. Like, this is something I did a lot when I was studying programming. I would finish the assignment and then I would kind of make a second step of the assignment myself for how I could take that concept further and learn more. I'm also not saying that you should give everything full effort. It all comes down to prioritization. Like, take the example of starting a YouTube channel I talked about earlier, where someone felt their efforts would be wasted. If they were just sitting at home and not looking to change their life or change their studies or work or whatever, and they were just going to start a YouTube channel, then if they add that to their life, regardless of how the channel goes, it's not wasted. But if they are thinking of either studying to become a programmer or starting a YouTube channel, and they're going to do one of these, then it makes more sense to think about the result you're expecting from either one and kind of what's more important to you. The same applies when it comes to things like work or studies. I think it's an inherent good to put in effort into these things, but it might be an even better good to put in more effort somewhere else. Like, say you're studying and working on a side project or a job at the same time, then you kind of need to prioritize what's important to you and what deserves the most effort. If the job is something you want to get out of and the studying is going to move you forward with your career, then you should probably focus more on studying and put most of your effort there. Whereas if you are studying but you've already started your career, then it probably makes more sense to focus on the work or the side hustle. I'm also definitely not saying that you should just always prioritize work or studying over things like relaxation or fun. As I talked about a couple of videos ago, breaks is one of the most important things you can do. It is also incredibly important to find the right work-life balance that works for you. I'm more just saying that putting in effort should be viewed as a good, not something that you have to only do for specific results. And if you can put in less effort, that is better. And also that putting in effort can make things more enjoyable and more fulfilling. Lastly, I don't think this mindset or this idea that effort is good applies equally to everyone. If you want to accomplish something difficult, or maybe you want to create something or start something on your own, then I think learning to put in effort is really valuable and pretty much necessary. But if you don't have any major ambitions and you're kind of happy with your direction in life and you don't see any reason to change it and you don't want to put yourself outside of whatever comfort zone you're in, then I think also that's completely fine. And there's no reason to feel guilty or feel like you need to expand your zone of ambition any more than what you're happy with. If I think back to myself when I started studying, I did try to get good grades, but not because I really had a specific thing I was motivated for. It was more just because it was something I felt I could do. And if I just looked at myself then at the surface level, I could maybe have made the case that putting in more effort didn't make that much sense. But I think if I dug a bit deeper, I would be able to see that in the future, I'm probably going to have some more ambitious goals or things that are more important to me, where I'm going to be thankful if I learn more about putting in the effort now. That is also something that has changed a bit in me over the last couple of years, that I've become a bit more ambitious. Not so much in terms of having ambitious goals or wanting to reach this wonderful end state, but more just having drives that are stronger and kind of pushes me in a more ambitious direction than just doing something because I feel like I can. This is a bit of a nuanced idea where there are points on both sides, but I get the impression, at least from my own past, that there is a heavy counterbalance to thinking that effort is a bad thing or something to be avoided, and I just wanted to add some more weight on the other end of that scale. If you like this video, I'll have a playlist here with other videos focused around kind of self-development and mindsets. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.